Okay. Uh, Good evening, everyone. It seems like we're having some connection issues. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good. So, good evening, everyone. Good evening. I was trying to get ahead of the Tropical Evening Symphony, but it seems like I couldn't. Today's Saturday, and Saturday is always for some people, such a busy full day. Today it turned out to be more so for me than I had even expected, than I had intended, certainly, or than I had expected. And so we are doing this. I'm doing this live a little bit later than I had planned. And when we had that conversation before about island time, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's Saturday and I'm in the tropics and I was up this morning. I woke up this morning before 4 o'clock and was out for my morning walk by about 5 o'clock. And I walked and walked and I met people and I talked to people and I stopped at the beach. And by the time I got back home, it was after 10 o'clock. And and then some people came by, friends of mine came by, my brother came by, and I was talking and chatting until afternoon. Breakfast was lunch, and lunch was late, and that was my Saturday. I wonder how yours was. How are your Saturdays usually? And is there a difference between how women, generally speaking, spend our Saturdays and men? Is there a difference of any kind, really, between how men and women operate and what we do and don't do? Do those things still hold? Is one of the questions we're going to examine over the next week. And moving forward, we're going to always be thinking about that because it matters, because that's part of the conversation about how women are supported and encouraged and facilitated in the world has a lot to do with how people think women ought to spend our time, the things we ought to focus on, and the things that we think we ought to focus on, the things we want to do, and how we want to spend our time. So we're going to talk about that. But today, I want to talk to you today about something I said yesterday, and I say all the time, and I get asked about all the time. Also, I'm going to take my glasses off because they're reflecting off those lights. Yes, and I got dark circles under my eyes because I guess not getting enough sleep. I don't know, but that's kind of life. That's part of life. We're going to talk about those too, because I said this before. When we work on camera and we get to see ourselves reflected back at us, we see things that we miss in the mirror on a normal everyday basis, and it's so interesting for me, actually, just moving forward. Actually, let me do something here before I go. As we get older, the things that matter and the things that stop mattering, the things that don't matter anymore, things like glasses. And I remember when I was in my 20s, thinking I love this idea of the pince-nez, the one to glasses down there that you can look over your glasses. I really was excited. I wanted to get to 40 to be able to do that. And then now, I got to 40 a while ago, and I'm not so sure that was a good thing. But anyway, what we're going to talk about today is this thing I say a lot, because I believe it, but that often requires explanation. And it's good for me to explain this today, because yesterday I got in a conversation with someone about it. And this morning I got in a conversation with a woman and a man. Oh my goodness. About this. Sorry about that. I should have turned my phone off. The idea that when any woman succeeds, all women win. One woman succeeds, all women win. It's an interesting idea, and for me, it's fundamental. It's really important, because we still are having to answer those questions that I asked earlier. How do we spend our time? How should we? Does it matter how we want, how other people want? What are our roles? What should our roles be? What are the roles we think we should have or not have? All of those questions. And when we think of women succeeding, when I say one woman succeeds, all women win. One woman succeeds at anything, all women win. I really mean that when one woman succeeds, it opens a door, it pushes open, it nudges a door for other women. That's what that means to me. And so when any woman takes up any role that is not traditionally female, that is thought to not be ladylike, that is thought to just not be for women, or when people say that women don't like that, or women shouldn't do that, when we get told these things, any woman who steps into that, for me, is an advancement for women. And so the women who do that, the women who open the door, who nudge it, who push it an inch or a millimeter open, what kind of women are they supposed to be is what I get asked. Does it matter which woman, what kind of woman opens that door? And I say no. And then I get pushed back on that because, yes, of course, I get told we only want certain kinds of women. Now, what is certain kinds of women? All women, just like all men, have the same human capacities, capabilities, propensities, weaknesses, etc., etc., etc. So women are not angels. Women are not perfect. Women are not all quote unquote good. There are many women who feel the same way about women that men do, because all of us have been conditioned to feel that way about women, to see women the ways that men do. It wasn't just men. Our cultures, our societies, our communities, our families teach us that. And so when a woman pushes open a door or cracks a ceiling, the question of whether she is the right one, or when a woman is about to, let me say that, when a woman is about to crack a ceiling and we ask, is she the right one? The question is, the other question is, if she isn't the right one, what do we do? And my response is nothing. Not nothing. I mean, obviously we want the ones who open the door. We want them to be the ones that we think will continuously be committed to advancing women. And that doesn't always happen. So, for example, you look at women like, let's think about politics, for example. Let's think about British politics, for example. If we think about Margaret Thatcher, about whom I had a conversation a few weeks ago when the Queen of England died, Margaret Thatcher was not a feminist, although she said that she opened the door for women, and she did. She opened the door wide for women in England. She was a very strong leader. She was called the Iron Lady, no less. And she, in many ways, behaved like a man, which, of course, is the standard of behavior in politics and things like that. And so she wasn't pro-woman. Some people say she wasn't pro-anybody, but that's another question. She wasn't pro-women. She wasn't particularly interested in opening any doors or creating any openings for women. But the fact that she, a woman, got in there made it possible for other women to get there. And that's what I mean. Sometimes it's not the woman that we would like. It's not the one who's going to continue to work for us. It's not the one that we can depend on to continue the conversation, to expand the conversation, to open more doors and lift more women up. But just their having done that opens the door for us. And that's what I mean when I say when one woman wins, when any woman succeeds, all women win. Because when any woman succeeds at anything, whether it's something that is traditional women or anything else, it erases some of the thinking about what women are capable of. It eases the journey for other women. And so, although there are times, and there are many times actually, when I would rather that I want that door opened. I want that ceiling cracked. I want that millimeter nudged. I'm not sure that's the woman, but if it's a woman and there's no other woman, we push her through. I know it sounds a little bit perverse because sometimes you'll be pushing to a woman who's not going to help, who's not going to help. So, for example, with the Equal Rights Amendment in the United States, you're pushing women, but you know that there are women who are not going to help. There were women who would not help, did not help, and so these states have not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment for women. If you look at the United States Supreme Court right now, the woman before the last one, who was brought on as a Supreme Court justice, women did not want her because they knew that she would not advance the causes that are important to women. So, for example, the abortion debate that's going on right now, she's not supporting it. That's not, no. Although, of course, in her hearings, she gave indications that she would not be an obstacle at any rate. But the fact that another woman became a Supreme Court judge makes it easier for another woman. And so the other woman, the last woman to have been made a Supreme Court justice, is a woman who women feel they can depend on in the United States. So those other women having won eased the way for these women, and that's what this is. And so this week there's a lot of action today and tomorrow and up until the elections in the United States. At least there's going to be a lot of activity around women and voting for women and supporting women's issues, and we'll see how that shakes out. But women are beginning to understand, more and more women are beginning to take a stand up and say, we want this because women want this. It's important to women, and we are making this decision. We're going to talk about what's going on in Iran. We're going to talk about what's going on in South Africa. We're going to talk about what's going on in Jamaica, all over the world where women are concerned. We're going to talk about France. We're going to talk about Italy. We just got the first woman prime minister who is described as right-wing. Some people say she admires Mussolini. She's on that track, and many people feel that she's not. She says she's for the family. She's family-centered, and that for some people translates as not particularly interested in women's issues. And of course, if you know anything about Italy, you know that the woman figure, the woman in Italian society is woman holds a very visible place, and I say visible for want of a better word, because there's an Italian word, mamone, that they use for Italian men. Italian men are generally thought to be mamoni, which means they love their mothers and they follow their mothers, they do what their mothers say, and everything is about mamma, which of course is not necessarily so, because there is the mama, and then there is other women who don't get treated with equality and justice in many ways, as much as, and then of course there's the I don't know if it's a myth, there's the thing of the Latin lover who just loves women. Italian men love women, and so they take care of women, they look after women, and that taken to these extremes, to these levels, is in many ways counterproductive for women, because when you hear men talk about taking care of women, very often it means that they decide for women that, just be the little woman and don't do much. I'll take care of you. I'll look after you. And that doesn't help women's advancement. That doesn't help women's autonomy and independence, physical or mental, emotional, psychological, professional. It doesn't help. And so the issue is finding balance. Of course, we like to be taken care of. We like to have doors open for us. We like to, to be told, baby, don't worry, I got this. You just sit there, let me look after you. We like the sound of that. And that is exactly what we need sometimes. But sometimes it's exactly what we do not need. It's what we absolutely do not need, because it holds us back, it pushes us back, it keeps us in that little box, it keeps us small, and it prevents us making our contribution to the world. So the whole idea, for example, of women as soldiers, as warriors. There's a new movie out with Viola Davis, The Woman King. It's about a group of women warriors in Africa, and how they defended their people and their king. Um, and women, when you think about things like war, up until not well, traditionally women were not allowed to go to war, at least traditionally the last few millennia. But because women are so delicate, it's not just because women are supposed, it wasn't just because it was thought women are supposed to stay home and take care of the babies and the elderly and the wounded warriors. It was also because women were just thought, didn't have the strength, the stamina, the grit, the whatever it takes to be a good soldier, a good warrior, a good fighter. Of course, that's not true. There have been good warriors, women. And the woman in this particular movie, go see it. I haven't seen it yet. I'm in the Caribbean and it's not here yet. But I'm in Montserrat and it's not here yet. When I get out of Montserrat to a place where we can go to the movies, or when it comes online, I'll get to see it, whichever one comes first. But go see it, because the idea that women, of course, nobody wants war. Most of us, at any rate, don't want war, don't want to go to war. But wars are being fought all the time, and sometimes there are just wars. Wars of defense, for example, are just wars. And women have a right, and we also have the capability to fight, to defend our families, our countries, our people. And we should not be prevented just because we are women and we're supposed to be dainty and soft and all that. No, we can be really, real warriors. And so all of those things are the things that we're going to talk about as we go along. So the foundation for this next set of lives is that one woman wins, all women. One woman succeeds, all women win. Or when any woman succeeds, all women win. And we're going to talk also about things that I mentioned last night, about the vocabulary of experiences, because it's our vocabulary that helps us win, our vocabulary of experiences, our vocabulary of words, of course, that helps us be articulate and explain ourselves and ask for what we want and negotiate and call things and stand up for things and so on. It's our vocabulary of language that allows us to do that. Our vocabulary of experiences allows us to see things, to notice trends, to see how things are working, to put 2 and 2 together, as it were, and see what it adds up to, because it doesn't always add up to 4. We know that, right? 2 and 2 don't always add up to 4. And unless you have a certain level, a certain width or depth of vocabulary of experiences, you won't know when 2 and 2 are not being made and not 4. You won't know when you're being bamboozled, when you're being misled. You won't know what really is happening over there. And if you don't know, you're uninformed, you're ignorant of what's going on and what really is, you're at a loss, you're at a disadvantage, a severe disadvantage. And so it is important that we all develop a vocabulary of experiences. And when women are being prevented, in those countries which prevent women from having an education, we absolutely don't want women educated. That is why, because they know what knowledge does, they know what a vocabulary does, they know the power in a vocabulary. So we're not talking knowledge, we're going to use vocabulary. They know what a vocabulary does. And so when women are educated, they understand things in the home, for example, and so they'll question things and they'll understand and be able to have the capability to. They might not be able to because they might be, so severely suppressed, but they have the ability, the capability to challenge things, and that's important. That matters, So we're going to talk about all of those things over the next week, and then once a week after that. So I think something happened with my Instagram here. Just give me 1 second. So we are going to. Here we go. So we are going to be talking about all of those things and um, developing the ideas as we go along. I invite you to check in, to jump in, to add to the conversation. Send me notes. Send me notes while I'm speaking. Send me notes after. Send me email, whatever. Go online to the website shirleyosborne.com. Check out what's going on there, and join the Women's Leadership Circle, and participate in all the other wonderful, wonderful things that we are doing. Tomorrow, I'm going to do the live at midday our time, which is midday Eastern time, midday in New York. I invite you to log on. Check in while I'm live. If you can't, then check it out afterwards and leave me your comments, your thoughts, your impressions, your objections. Let's have that conversation too. Tell me what you think and why you think that, and let's have that conversation. I'm interested in the conversations that are not in alignment with mine, because that helps me understand, helps me analyze mine and come to see whether they are as firm and as well grounded, as well as logical as they ought to be, or whether they're missing pieces, whether I should shift. I'm open to that, because life is about change and advancement and movement. And sometimes what we have to do actually in order to move forward is to change. Is sometimes you have to turn right around in order to move forward, in order to do better. We do what we need to do to advance, to move forward for ourselves and for the world, for our family, for our friends, for our communities, our countries, and the world. And the world needs women to do all of these wonderful, wonderful things that we are still not being allowed to do. The world, we need women engaged. Right in this little island here, I've been having conversations recently about girls in technology, because something happened. I saw a social media post that about boys in technology being guided around the Coast Guard ship, put it that way. We have a police vessel, and there was just boys, a group of boys. And so I asked, where were the girls? What happened? Where are the girls? And the girls had a Girls in ICT Day, and the language around it was so different. The girls and the boys, I mean, for example, they went to a room to begin with at what's called the DMCA, the Disaster Management something or other, the DMCA, and agency. And the girls interacted and won prizes. The boys had a discussion. I found that interesting. The boys had in the same place, because the girls went one day, the boys went another day. Why they were not put together is anybody's guess. Well, no, it's not anybody's guess. We know why. We still think that they are separate things. And in fact, they were guided to separate. They did different things, even in the same place. So when they began the day, this is a school trip. When they started the day in this particular building, in this particular agency. The boys had a discussion. The girls had activities, engaged in activities, and won prizes. So the girls were playing, and the boys were having serious discussions. That's what language does. That's what a vocabulary does. So some of the conversations I had around, I said, but it's the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. The person who wrote this up said the boys had discussions about whatever. And it doesn't even matter. Even if they had discussions about dolls, the point is they had discussions. A discussion is something a little bit weighty. The girls engaged in activities and won prizes. The girls played, basically. That engage in activities, not so. That's what language does. And that's why it's important to have language, both words and a language that you get from experiences. So you can see when these things are happening, you can pick those things up. Because very often they are not, more and more, they are not as cut and dried as this separation, this differentiation is not as cut and dried as it used to be. It's much more subtle, like discussion versus engage in activities and win prizes. And those subtleties still are powerful enough to keep women in this place, while the boys keep girls in this place playing, while the boys go off and have discussions. So I'm looking forward to the rest of this week and to the engagements going forward once a week. And I thank you for hanging out with me this afternoon, this evening, because the symphony has begun. I'm sure you're hearing it. The tropical evening symphony has begun. Tomorrow we'll do it at midday, so you hear none of this, right? I'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, until tomorrow, until then, take good care.